A little bit more.
Oh no, are you fucking joking?
Part of me just wants to see that engine turn into a spare change jar when you open it up.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Wrecked Bike Rebuild Garage. I am Chaseontwowheels. I have team behind me. Today, we have a CBR1000. It is our Street Fighter build for Wrecked Bike Rebuild Garage that we give away. Sign up down below to win free motorcycles that we finish up. Okay, we have the beginnings of an engine teardown, right?
Yeah, so far we've taken the oil pan off of it, the oil pump out of it,
Right.
and the oil pickup out of it.
Right. So if you guys just quick catch up, we had a CBR1000. It had a little ticky situation in the engine
Well,
where we
how
were
did it
running
go?
it. Ticky, knock. That's what we've been calling it. Took the oil filter off, bone dry. So, we have a couple episodes worth of tearing into this engine to find out WTF is happening with it. On today's episode, we're going to focus on the clutch side. Am I correct?
I think we're going to tackle both left and right sides of the engine today.
Basically what we're going to do, guys, is we don't really get this opportunity very often to have a total engine disassembly. So Brian is going to take us through the entire situation, explain what stuff is, because we're going to be able to get all up in here. And I imagine you guys like me have probably never gone that deep. You might never go that deep, but it's just a cool opportunity to like really dig into something that I don't really see a lot here on YouTube. So we're going to take it slow. We're going to give you guys a ton of knowledge, or as much as Brian can, and I'm going to be an extra set of these. So, step one, oil pump.
Yeah,
Take it apart.
we're gonna disassemble the oil pump first, and then we'll move on to taking some of the accessories off the engine to make it easier for us to disassemble it.
Cool. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to talk you guys through the whole process because I'm sure a lot of you guys don't know what the hell is happening. I got you. All right, oil pump disassembly. Ooh, disassembly.
This pump is destroyed. Definitely some metal went through this. So, well, this now, it doesn't look so bad now that I've taken the oil off of it, but the pump there doesn't look so good either. Okay, so this is half of your oil pump. This is where the actual pump itself, this is your pump.
Okay.
The rod, this inner and outer piece are the actual pump itself.
Okay.
Now this would be considered the pump housing. The housing holds the pump itself, as well as the pressure regulator. All these grooves in here will actually reduce your oil pressure, because oil will squeeze past all these little grooves, and then you're going to lose a little bit of pressure. Now, the pump always makes more pressure than the bike needs. That's why there's a pressure regulator.
Right.
So if you've lost more than the difference between how much the pump makes and the regulator itself, now you have an issue.
So with that,
Are we there? I don't know, because we never checked oil pressure.
How do you check oil pressure?
Usually you remove one of the oil passage lines from the engine case. Usually there's some sort of access point close to the cylinder head where you just take a plug out and put a gauge in its place and then fire the motor up and read the pressure.
So we would have had to do that when the bike was
It was
running.
fully together, yes.
Okay.
But we were fully intending to take this thing apart.
Right.
And when you do a rebuild on an engine, you know, it doesn't make any sense to not replace the pump, even if it looks like it's in decent shape. This bike had how many miles on it? 30,000?
Yeah.
High 20s or something like that?
Not as many as the 600.
Not as many as the 600, but this one had a decent amount of miles on it, so why not change a pump if we're this deep into it? Right. And the way this pump body looks, I would do a full assembly, so all these grooves will be gone when the new one is there. You won't see all that
So
stuff.
our,
So there'll be
our,
no
purchase,
loss.
our OEM purchase list needs to include oil pump then.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Where is that from?
Oh, so if you guys are ordering OEM parts, I know I said the thing about RevZilla, but legitimately RevZilla's website is so freaking simple to order stuff. We'll show on the screen like what a parts fish looks like, and they make it super simple.
Right,
It
if
makes
you-
it so easy that I can understand it. So if you guys need OEM stuff, we highly recommend RevZilla because that's Luke's thing. He's really good at the whole parts fish thing, but he can actually show me stuff, and I understand what I'm looking at. So. Yeah, if you guys are going to do that, we'll have a link down below if you're getting OEM parts. But anyway,
Okay, so
total
we'll
oil pump, just get rid of it.
We're going to continue
If you're
taking it
this far.
apart so, so we can see in between everything. And to show you guys how these things are actually built.
Right.
Oh, now that little washer is stuck on there. There we go. Okay. That's just a spacer to cover, if you can see that little pin in there.
Yes,
Okay, so that pin
fell out.
is what connects the pump to the drive gear on the outside. So this is where that little sprocket goes,
Right.
that the oil pump drive gear is turned by that little chain. So this spins with the gear on it.
Oh, because this is being pushed one direction, so that pin is always pressed into this little
Right,
groove.
so-
I got it. Okay.
That's how this thing is assembled. It's that easy that you slide it sideways, the pin drops out. There's your oil pump.
Is that fully disassembled then?
That is a fully disassembled oil pump.
No shit.
That's it.
That's really not.
It's a very, very simple design.
Right.
And they're almost unbreakable. You know, the only way you could really wear one of these things down is if you have a piece of metal go through the engine. It winds up getting past the oil pickup screen, and then you wind up with it in your pump. And looking at this internal section of the pump, this thing's wasted. You can see where metal has been through this. If you could see all the little nicks in it, you know, these things, when they come out, are usually perfectly smooth.
That thing looks like it fell down the road at high speed.
It looks like it was put through a sandblaster and then rubbed with oil. It would look way worse if you were to get some contact cleaner and spray all the oil off of this thing and it was dry. It would look way worse than it does right now.
Yeah, if that's supposed to be smooth, that's nowhere near smooth.
You could still see there's little tiny flecks of metal. Looks like it's stuck to the outside.
So that none of those little particulates should be there.
No, this thing should be perfectly smooth.
You can feel the nicks with your fingernail.
Yeah, and
Like-
that's what makes it bad. See, if you could see the grooves, it's really not that big a deal. But if you can get in there with a fingernail and feel them, you know it's bad.
Okay, so we're thinking
We
metal.
we need a full oil pump assembly. When you're inspecting an oil pump and you take the first outside cover on, and what you see are all these grooves on the outside of the cover and then all these grooves on the front of the pump, you're pretty much going to say it's junk.
Okay, so add to the purchasing list is a new oil pump. All right, Brian, what is our next move to dig into this bad boy?
Being that we have the oil pan off of our engine,
Yes.
we have a nice flat spot to lay the engine down so it'll be nice and stable while we're working on it.
Right.
We do have a couple of small parts that are going to stop us from doing that. These
Okay.
are what we consider accessories to the engine.
This is that
So
boy and
this
that boy?
is the water pump,
Okay,
and this is the oil cooler.
gotcha. So we're going to remove those.
So we're going to remove these with the hoses that are attached to them and set them aside so we could take the engine and rotate it and flip it flat onto our work surface so it'll be stable while we're working on it.
Sounds good. Time to get the engine flat.
Okay, you ready? Are
Yes.
we ready?
Yes, we
Okay.
are ready.
So we're going to take all the spaghetti hoses off of our engine cases and anything that sits lower than this flat surface on the bottom of the engine.
Yeah, we're trying to get it.
That's what we're trying to do here. So if you wouldn't mind, there is 1, 2, right there, and then 3 bolts that hold that water pump up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the access cover to be able to get to hardware to turn the engine over by hand, so
Okay.
you can set your timing for maintenance and stuff like that.
Right.
If we are going to turn this engine over by hand, we need to remove the spark plug so there's no compression in the engine.
Okay.
So from here, step one, remove spark plugs.
So now you need 8 mil, 8 mil, 8 mil, 8 mil. Those are not spark plugs. These are though.
You said it was such comedy too.
Uh-huh.
Wait, so Brian, are you saying that there's a secret to removing spark plugs without breaking things?
It's not a secret.
Oh.
You do have to be very delicate about it. If you have the engine out like this, you can get all these out without any sort of tools. So you want to just put a little bit of pressure underneath it here, if I can get to this one, and turn it back and forth. So upward pressure and turn it back and forth at the same time. There you go.
Ah, okay. There you go. Upward pressure and wiggle
And
back.
a twist, yes. Got all 4 plugs out.
Yes,
So
all
now we
4
can
plugs are out.
flip the engine back over again.
All right, allow me to do said thing.
Do they have pit stops and pit teams at motorcycle races?
Only for endurance races.
Like long distance ones.
Yeah.
Whoa, why did that happen?
There's a chunk of metal in that.
Oh my God, are you serious? Again.
So that, I'm pretty sure, is what destroyed our oil pump.
Yay.
And
metal.
this thing would have continually been pumped through the motor
Just over. and
because
over.
the oil filter wasn't filtering anything.
So there were no police up in here being like, hey man, we need you to leave the club. He
This
was just
looks
walking around punching people.
A little big to be something that would have made it through the pickup screen. So not real sure. That may not have been it. You know, there are redundancies.
The fact that there's a
We
big...
tipped this thing over and a chunk of metal fell out of it is one of those things, yeah. That, as far as the world of internal combustion engines floating around inside your engine, is massive.
All right, guys. In typical Wrecked Bike Rebuild fashion, we had the engine on the side, got the spark plugs out because we want to have this flat piece down like we were doing. And I start tipping it back, and I hear a uh-oh from Brian, and I'm like, oh, oil, okay. Nope. This little piece of metal is sitting on top of all the oil.
So this came from somewhere. Let's find out where.
14 is correct.
All right, so 14 millimeter is the proper size tool to put on the hardware on the side of the engine so you can rotate the engine to do your servicing. That's why they put that there. So you can set the engine at top dead center so you can inspect all your valves and do all that stuff
Right.
without having to disassemble. Okay, engine's direction of rotation is always towards the front of the motorcycle.
So this way.
Correct.
Clockwise.
Now, I've already removed the oil pump from the
Yes.
machine. We dropped the oil pump gear chain
Right.
down into the engine, remember?
Yes.
Okay, so I did just grab a pick and fish that chain out. So when we turn the engine, it doesn't bind up the chain and break anything.
So one of us turns and one of us is going to have
holds
to
the
kind of
chain.
hold
Yep.
the chain.
So what we're going to do right now is we're going to angle this towards Luke a little bit so we can get a better view.
All right. So I'm turning it towards the front of the engine.
Yes.
you
Very,
ready to go?
very, very slowly.
Okay. You ready?
Okay, so the stuff that you're looking at right behind my hand at the very bottom of your screen is the transmission countershaft.
These boys.
That's the power being put out of the engine.
Okay.
Okay, you can't see the main shaft because it's directly underneath from the direction that we're looking at.
Right.
From the countershaft is the main shaft of the transmission.
Okay.
The main shaft of the transmission is being run by this big gear on the back of the clutch pack.
Okay.
Okay, and then like you were saying, the cylinder hammers that you saw, or the crankshaft webbing that you saw rotating around, every time that webbing comes to this area where you could see the webbing towards you, that means that it's drawn the piston as far down as it could
Right.
go.
Okay.
It's at the bottom of its stroke.
Gotcha.
Okay, when it's like right here, this is the bottom of the connecting rod.
Right.
So that cylinder is now pulled as far down as it can go, and then they'll rotate and start the stroke back up again. So then this little doohickey right here is the balancer shaft,
Oh, that doohickey. Got you.
right? Okay, I'm going to tell you a doohickey so you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
please
and
use
then I'm
my
going to give you the
terminology.
correct terminology afterwards. Okay, so the crankshaft has a gear on it, as you can see right here. That gear is solely to drive the balancer shaft, and that takes a lot of the vibration out of the engine, so your motorcycle doesn't put your hands and your feet and your sack to sleep
Unless you're riding a
immediately.
Harley. Engine's flat.
Engine's flat. Now we can start working on some stuff here.
So to remind myself, the reason we got it flat is so now we have a stable engine environment.
Yeah, this is way more stable to work on. You have
Than
one
that
person's got to
wobbly
grab
bullshit.
it. You know, there's nothing touching underneath. It's not putting pressure on anything it's not supposed to. Now, if you're going to do this, I'm just going to say this out loud. I'm sure you guys fully understand this, but obviously make sure that you have something to cushion the bottom of this. You don't want to lay your
Metal
engine
on
like this
metal.
on a concrete floor.
Right.
Bad idea.
Would a piece of cardboard be fine in a concrete floor?
Yes, piece of cardboard, maybe 2 pieces of cardboard thick. Here we have a metal lift, which is a little flexible, good for us, a piece of cardboard, and then an oil mat. So all those things together are helping us to protect that gasket surface.
Don't do it on a concrete
That's
floor.
exposed. Yeah, you don't want to put this like this on a very hard surface. You'll wind up nicking, because the bottom of the engine and the oil pan, there is no gasket between the two of those. They are sealed by sealant only, because the machining is so precise that they pretty much stick together, like what he was saying before. They're not close enough together. They're going to stop oil from leaking, which is why you put a little tiny bit of gasket sealer on it, and that's it. So that's all of the engine covers for a Honda engine. At least for their super sport engines, they don't use gaskets to seal the covers, the oil pan. The only place where you have gaskets is valve cover, cylinder head, and cylinder base.
Gotcha.
Cool?
Okay. Cool.
So this is our access
Now
to
it's
turn the motor over by hand. for maintenance sake. And I'm not sure if you could see it in here, but stamped on this gear is a T, an F, and a B. Okay, the T is for top dead center.
I knew that.
The F is for fire.
So that's when the cylinder is at the lowest point. No,
Nope.
the top
So
highest point.
that's when the ignition system is told to light the spark plug.
What's B stand for?
No idea.
For real?
There it is. THF? F is
A T, but then there's two lines and then an F.
Yep.
So it's a T, and then the first line is your top dead center.
Yep.
And then there's an F, and there's another line, and that's your fire.
Yeah.
So in the rotation of the engine, you will get to where the ignition fires before you get to top dead center.
Well, because it's got to fire when there's gas compressed into the air.
But they do it just before the piston gets all the way to the top.
Right.
Just in those microseconds
That
it takes for the finish that last couple of degrees of compression.
Right.
And it already fires it and gives it, because everybody says, that when the spark plug fires, you get an explosion.
Okay.
It's not actually an explosion, it's a controlled burn. So if you could put a small micro camera inside of a combustion chamber and see how the flame actually burns, they've done this, I've seen it. See how the flame burns inside of a cylinder. It starts in one spot and it just flashes out.
Right.
So it burns everything in a very quick way that almost would seem like an explosion, but it's actually not an explosion.
you
it's
can
a burn.
watch it fast
If you could
enough.
watch it at speed.
Right.
So if you could see how close as those two dashes are together, in the time it takes for the piston when it's moving at speed to go from the fire to the top dead center we're talking milliseconds.
Right.
And that is, that's your ignition timing.
Yeah.
Okay, so if your ignition is controlled by the ECU, it sees that fire, and then it'll electronically advance or retard the ignition timing depending where it needs to be.
Oh my good God. All right. You're above my pay grade now.
Yep. I'll be
Way.
above your pay grade most of the today.
Oh, sweet. The spark plugs are oily, but the oil filter isn't. Great.
Yes, isn't that awesome?
Perfect.
Okay.
The whole clutch cover thing.
So we loosened all the bolts on the clutch cover. Not sure if you guys noticed, but this one bolt has this little washer on it. And then if you look over here on the engine case, not sure if you could see that from here, Luke. Right here on the engine case is this little arrow that is cast into the engine case. That is where that washer goes.
Is that the only one with a washer?
It is currently on this machine. And if there was another one, there would be two washers and there would be two arrow marks on the engine cases to let you know where they go. Now, the reason why that washer is on there, and I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera, but that washer is super thick. Okay? So that's a little bit more than a washer. It's more like a spacer. And the reason why they do that is this bolt goes through the cover into the engine case, and if it was any longer, it would actually protrude into the cylinder.
That'd be terrible.
So they put that, so if you take this engine cover off and you forget to put this washer on, and you drive that bolt all the way into the engine case, the first time you start that motor, you destroy that piston.
Are you able to do that?
Yes.
There's a hole that goes all
It
the
either
way
goes
in.
all the way to the piston or that's the wall of the sleeve for the cylinder. One or the other. So if you drive this all the way in
If you're like
without
me
the
and an
washer
idiot,
on
you
it,
just start cranking it.
or you use one of these and you don't even realize it because you start it by hand, you go until it's done.
Right.
This thing's not strong. I'm not going to break anything, right? That's what you would think. But if that bolt was pressing against the inside internals of the engine,
Nah, dude.
shit goes boom,
Nah, dude.
right?
All right, we're not making.
Good to know?
Yes.
Good to know. So I think you guys have seen this trick before. Let's see how it is.
Oh, I know what the trick's going to be. You're going to pull the lever to open it.
Right. So this is stuck on here. And like I was saying before, there's no gasket. So the sealer's got it on here really good.
Right. The thin layer
Okay.
of.
So we're actually going to use the push rod,
Yep.
or the pull rod, I should say, from the clutch and go the opposite direction until it breaks the seal. And there it goes.
Yeah, that's a pro level move right there.
Sir Isaac Newton for that. No pieces of clutch in there, is there?
There. It looks whole.
That's sad that that's a
Looks
positive
all-
force.
I did not know that 1000 clutches had a single spring. I'm blown away by this clutch assembly right now. So, you know, typically you have 6 bolts out here,
Oh. Yeah, that does look weird.
right? Looks a little weird. So this is what you would typically see on a cruiser. A single spring that's beveled and is putting all the pressure
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, because the Monster had
5 or 6
five or
springs.
6, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so this is a part. Let's start removing some of this stuff.
Wait, so how do you remove that if it doesn't have the springs doing the...
So there's, see this ring in here?
Yeah.
So you pinch the ring, pull it out, and then everything starts sliding out.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So this is your starter drive gear, and this is your idler gear. Here's a starter. Starter comes in here, turns this gear from back there. This gear turns this gear. This gear turns this gear, which is your starter clutch.
Okay.
So starter clutch is not attached to the flywheel on this bike, like a lot of other ones are. And then this is what cranks over the motor, and then boop, it spins freely from there once the starter clutch is disengaged.
Okay.
So we could start taking this stuff out of here.
So that little silver cylindrical thing is a starter motor on the
This
back?
part right here?
Yeah.
Yes.
And how does it go?
So there is a huge cable that comes off of the battery that attaches to the starter.
So it's a brushless electric motor.
It is a brushed electric motor.
I thought all electric motors were brushless.
No, this is
Okay.
a brushed electric motor.
So it is only run by the battery, and it's
Correct.
a motor that...
The battery
Turn
goes
something.
to the starter relay. The starter relay goes to the starter.
Okay.
So when you turn the key, it energizes the relay.
Okay.
When you push the button, it closes the circuit and punches power to the starter.
That's awesome.
We're not going to get into starters. That's a whole nother.
No,
Yeah.
I was just like, I saw it back there when I was holding the engine, and I was like...
What is
'cause
this thing?
I'm trying to get to the point where I can look at an engine and at least know the parts that I'm looking
That's what starters look like.
at. Just a
Period.
kind of a...
Every
boring
motorcycle starter looks like that one.
Little... Okay.
Okay. We just went off into space there for a while.
We did.
We're all good? Yes. Okay. So we're going to start by removing this idler gear. You notice that there are a couple of washers here. The first real thin washer you see isn't flat. It's kind of wavy.
Yeah.
That's so when you put the two of these together, there's space between it. So when you squeeze it in between the cover and here, there you go, there's always a little bit of pressure.
Okay.
So it doesn't have a chance to flop around.
Right.
Okay. Now this one has just it can move that tiny little bit, and that's okay. That's
Right.
why there's none of
'Cause
that
it's got
stuff
the
on this
housing
side.
that's
Well,
gonna
it's
be-
pinched in between the engine on this side and this side, where this one just rests on a pin and could move around a bit if you don't have it pinched in there. So it also stops any rattling noises, or slows them down, I should say.
Yeah, it's right.
It's like if this gear it could move, you would hear it kind of rattle around in here as everything was going down the road. So this gear is really just on this pin, and this pin is just sits in the engine.
Right.
Okay. Now we could start disassembling the clutch. I'm just going to set that out of the way. We're not going to be able to get, we might be able to get this gear out, but I'm going to leave it there until we get the clutch out.
Okay.
All right, so we need a pair of snap ring pliers. I don't know.
I was just curious.
Not important.
Flips out.
Slightly important. Okay. Slide this out of the way.
Luke, would it be good if I was over here? Like, I won't be able to really see what we're doing, but it doesn't
You
really...
want to be in frame.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'd rather the framing look cool than... or
Yeah,
look,
I just blocked you off from Brian this time. So.
Yeah. So we can just do this, and I'll just... Because we have the footage, so...
Okay. All right. So this is what we refer to as a spring seat.
Okay.
That goes in between this and this.
Okay.
So this doesn't chew away at this piece of aluminum.
Right.
So there's a flat piece of
Like a
steel in
little
between the
buffer.
two as a buffer.
Gotcha.
Okay. This is not quite your pressure plate. This assembly is a little bit different. So this is really just your throwout bearing. That's what that bearing is called, your throwout bearing holder.
Okay.
Okay.
I am familiar with a pressure plate because of the monster swapping out the clutch in it. That was a interesting situation.
Yeah, so this whole assembly is solely there for the throwout bearing and the mechanical use. So the pressure plate is here and the spring is behind everything.
Okay.
So this is a little bit more complicated than your regular clutch would be.
Yeah.
So throw out there, maybe.
So a throwout bearing is what your throwout rod rides on. It's pretty much all it does. So this bearing holds this piece in here, so when you pull the clutch lever, it pulls here, and this can rotate and not wear away this shaft. Cool? Get it? Understandable? Good? Okay.
There's some dictionary.com thing right there.
So
Throw
this
bearing that holds the throw.
looks like a 27 millimeter.
Every time we use that tool, I always get real prepped up for something terrible to happen, and it always does its thing in like 1 second. And then it's like, oh, okay, I'm pointless.
Okay. So there's the nut.
Okay.
There is a super heavy duty washer inside.
Goodness.
Okay, this part, thank you, is actually what holds the spring in place and puts all the tension on it.
Okay.
So instead of having 6 small screws,
Right.
it was one big mamma jamma, which I also think is what holds the entire clutch pack to the engine.
Right.
So typically in your clutch pack, you'd have 6 screws that hold the pressure plate,
Yeah.
and then you would take that off, and then there would be another nut behind it that held the basket in.
Right.
I'm pretty sure this one holds the whole shebang in, all in one shot.
I mean, so that makes it super easy to swap out. Then this is
Well,
one
let's-
thing instead of.
Let's find out how easy. Yeah. So remember what I was saying about this engine has to be turned to a certain point for the clutch to come out?
Oh,
now we're there.
This is that moment.
So if you could see, where's the flashlight? I'm going to stick my head in here for a second just so if you could see right here, Chase. That's a piece of the crank.
That little lined boy.
Yep.
Okay.
So we need to turn the engine until that's not in the way.
Okay, and
Kind
then
of light back in there and just stick a finger in there.
Okay.
Like between
So this piece right here,
Yeah.
that piece right there is part of the webbing for the crankshaft. So we need to turn the crank in a position where the webbing is not in the way so we could pull the clutch pack
so
out.
I'm gonna rotate this.
So we need to hang on a second,
This is the same thing, right?
but we have that chain dangling. So now we can see right here, that's where the webbing was for the crankshaft, and it is not there anymore. We have turned it, so the webbing is now out of the way, so now we should be able to pull the whole clutch assembly out, one big chunk.
So now it shouldn't bind up when you're pulling it.
And I am a liar.
hate
I could see what it's actually getting hooked on. So, okay, so we have to take everything apart to get it off. Okay, not one flat spring, but 2.
Okay.
Okay, so they double stack it. Usually you only see one of these.
Okay.
So you add 2, obviously you get more spring tension.
Right.
Okay.
Is that the same idea as that weighty washer?
With much more force. A little bit more, but
Oh no, are you fucking joking?
The clutch exploded.
Now, Brian, I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to happen. No.
Wow. That would be an exploded clutch. That is the absolute definition of an exploded clutch.
You know, guys, when we started this video, I told the guys, for good YouTube videos, you need a good hook.
Yeah, you did this.
I was like, guys, somewhere in this video, we need a good hook because we want you guys to watch through the entire video because it helps us on YouTube with algorithms and shit.
Good news.
Great. Brian has good news.
Yeah, the good news is that's where that little piece of metal came from.
Yeah. You know what? There's more good news. The clutch is exploded, but it exploded inside of the clutch basket and not all through the fucking engine.
Didn't have a chance to disintegrate the rest of the motor.
Dang, what an opportunity wasted.
So, this is your judder spring seat and judder spring.
Okay.
This is what stops your clutch from making really bad rattly noises while it is disengaged, while you have your hand on the clutch.
Gotcha.
It helps absorb some of the flapping around of the plates in here because there's no pressure on them.
Okay.
So they don't make all kinds of terrible noises. And then if they rattle too far, then they get stuck. And now you let go of the clutch, and then it gets smashed all together, and you start breaking little pieces off. So this kind of keeps everything in line as well.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
Clutch parts. These are the steels.
And they
All
go
right,
in
so
between.
these are the driven plates.
Okay.
And these are the plates that drive the driven plates.
Okay. When they're compressed, those are the ones that are hooked in
So
that are rotating.
these hook to the outer basket,
Right.
and these hook to the inner basket.
Right.
The outer basket is driven by the crankshaft,
Okay.
and the inner basket is driven by the clutch friction, which then turns the transmission. So this piece
Gotcha.
in the middle is attached to the trans.
Right.
This piece on the outside is attached to the crankshaft.
Gotcha.
So the crankshaft turns this part. All of these plates being pressed together with spring tension creates the friction between the two, which now drives the inner part, which turns the transmission.
I see.
Cool?
Right. So they're
Understandable?
always engaged. When you pull the clutch in, it releases tension. They're
So they
not
can slip past
close.
each other. They are still touching, always. They're always touching.
Well, like they don't have enough friction to
But
move each
yes,
other.
exactly.
Okay.
So you take enough friction off of them, so the oil slipping in between all the plates allows
Right.
the engine to turn freely from, I heard that, from the transmission, so you can take the pressure off and change gears. So this is never what you want to find when you take a clutch out.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Were those things the only reason that did not disintegrate is because it
was
blew
inside the
up
basket.
and didn't have enough
So all these little points and everything were still like this.
yeah.
All the
and
way
they were
around.
so tight in that they
Yeah, I mean, look at
Couldn't fall to pieces.
how tight. Actually, I'm off a little bit, but how tight they fit. Ooh,
right.
look at that,
Oh.
peened over. These sit in here, so if it was all the way around in there, there's no place for them to go.
Right. They would have to have disintegrated into pieces. To
And
fall
they're
out.
sandwiched in between two steels.
Right.
So they'd have to be in much smaller pieces than this for them to fall out. Now, I could tell you right now that if this bike was continued to be ridden, they would just break apart into smaller and smaller
Eventually
pieces.
just grind.
And then
So when it
kaboom.
made that noise, they probably killed the engine.
There's probably a really good chance that if this thing's broke up into small enough yet big enough pieces, it may lock up the engine. This clutch looks pretty new. I would have to say that this thing has less than 1,000 miles on it. It looks
Do
brand
you
new.
think it got installed?
Shuffling.
Shuffling.
Yeah, like
Do you think it could have been installed incorrectly, and that'd be what caused
there
that?
is a possibility that
Because-
was the wrong plate in the wrong place.
Right, because you saw that nick. What if that nick is when it hit, and then that shattered the entire ring, you know?
Okay, so these should go through here. Okay, so that's the fit in there.
So what would have caused that thing to get nicked like that? Because if it's slotted into there, like,
So it was probably, this may have been where the first fracture started.
oh, okay,
And then as you're spinning it, it wants to work its way up.
right.
And the force of the centrifugal force could have done that.
Luke, have you been able to see
The
shot
spot
of
where it's peened over.
Yeah.
And then you pump in the clutch and just like wearing it back and forth would
Right.
grind into that like that. That might actually be the chip missing
Okay.
from there.
Okay.
You know, so, but this clutch looks really new and really broken.
Two words you don't really get to say that often. They don't go together. Would you worry with that nick that this outer housing might be messed up?
That's kind of what I'm looking at right now to see what the inner and outer basket looks like right now. So in these grooves in here, like look at all that wear just in this section.
Yeah, like up here.
Oh. Time for a new one. You can feel the dents in it, which means that the new clutch plates are going to get hung up in those spots.
And
it
then
won't be
wear
smooth.
those even
It
more.
won't be smooth.
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
that-
this thing's beat up good.
Was it the friction plate? Was it towards the front or the back?
It was
of
like in the
basket?
middle. It's like it was like the third plate.
So we shouldn't be able to see those lines at the top of that,
You may see some wear marks,
but you
but you shouldn't be able to feel them.
I see. Okay.
If
You know.
see a new clutch that's this destroyed, like what's your gut reaction?
Either it was not, like the plates themselves were not soaked long enough and they went in dry. And lube is your friend.
Yeah.
Before you put clutch plates in, you need to soak them in oil so all these little pads are at full absorption of oil.
Right.
If you put them in before that, then you don't get real good grip between the two. And it could have been, you know, maybe there was still like a dry spot
Right.
and the clutch got like a couple real quick like clutch slips. You ever do that in your car and it's like you do that to a motorcycle and this is what happens.
So seeing this now,
This is, you know, clutch up wheelies,
yeah.
whole shots from traffic lights, you know, stuff like that does
Dumping the clutch.
really, really bad things to your clutch assembly.
Okay, so we're here. Clutch is blown. We had the one piece of metal earlier that we found. What does seeing that make you like? Where does your head go with the rest of the engine now?
This could have been causing some of our rattle
Right.
because it was
Not
in
a
the
whole
engine
unit.
and it was turning and it was getting moved around internally and then you rev it and it goes woo and everything wants to spread out.
Right.
And it could have been making all that clanking noise inside. I don't remember if while we were doing that whole thing, if we were like pumping the clutch to see if that made a difference or not.
I feel like we did everything when we had it on.
Didn't we have it in gear
No,
at one point?
I don't think so in the 1000.
Was that the 300?
I think it was a 300 we did that on. This could be our cause. I'm not 100% satisfied that this would be the cause though.
Okay.
It very well could be because if you remember, our sound was even with engine RPM. As we raised the RPM, the tick got faster. As we lowered RPM, the tick got slower.
Right.
The clutch spins with engine RPM.
Right.
So this very well could have been our issue, but we're going to keep going.
Well, yeah, because now we have no idea how many of those tiny little metal pieces have fallen, and if that thing blew up that fucking bad, then there's no telling what's in there.
Yeah, there could be some more of those little chips in here somewhere. So
Because we still haven't solved the
Man,
oil
I
filter
had it-
being dry problem.
now I did speak to a technician friend of mine who mentioned that he had seen oil filters come off of this particular engine dry before.
He had seen that before.
And he said the reason for it was because the oil filter went on dry and it was like creating an air void in the system and the oil pressure wasn't enough to squeeze the air out of the filter. There was too much air in it.
Okay.
So it was almost creating like an air barrier in between the section of the oil system that the
Right.
filter was on, and the rest of the flow.
So that could have been just a air thing.
could have been a fluke thing that the
Might
you know,
not be a technical, like, hard issue.
Could that, did that, would that have caused issues later? Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
But I'm still not 100% sure that the oil filter didn't cause the rattle.
Right.
You know, what caused the oil filter to be empty? I'm going to say the loss of oil pressure from our blown up pump.
Right.
Okay, so not enough pressure in the pump, didn't make enough pressure to make its way to fill the oil filter and overcome the amount of air that was in it. Okay, and then from there, they still have a lack of oil pressure that's going to cause all the plain bearings in the engine run on a film of oil.
Okay.
If there's not enough pressure in there, it's not going to put enough oil in there to make that buffer space. So now those plain bearings now have a chance to wiggle around and make some noise.
Dude,
So we're on our way down the rabbit hole for sure.
right.
This was a secondary tunnel that I don't think is going to take us to our be-all, end-all.
Right.
But now this is one more thing that we have to fix.
Right there.
Oh.
So clutch still won't come out.
Yes.
Okay, so there is, you can see in here, one of the castings for the hardware that holds the engine cases together is in the way.
Okay.
So how and pray tell are we supposed to get this thing out?
You are the only other person in my life that
It
I've
says
ever
pray
heard
tell?
the word pray tell other than my grandma. Heather and I have a joke where we say, "Oh, tell me, pray tell."
So how you get this clutch basket out is
Yes,
there
pray tell,
is
tell me.
a bearing and the spacer in the center of the hub.
Okay.
Okay,
That's it.
bearing,
Spacer.
spacer. Do you see the hole?
Yes.
Do you see the groove inside?
Yes.
Oil pressure goes through the hole and into the groove and puts oil in between these two parts as they rotate. Oil gets through that hole from the shaft.
Okay.
The oil is pumped through the shaft and from the inside out pushes out into all the parts.
Okay.
Cool?
Cool.
Okay, so this part is out. So now we have some room to wiggle the clutch basket up and down. Can you see the up and down?
I can.
So now we can kind of just work this thingy out of here.
Jesus. That is a big old boy. Now, there is scratching on the outside.
That is not scratching, that is machining.
That is supposed to be here.
So when that part was cast, there were some rough edges there, and they went in and knocked all of it off before they sent it to assembly. Yeah, so this is a cast piece. If you could see these white marks in it, I think that's really just machining to clean up the inside of the basket so everything clears.
Okay.
Doesn't really look like there was, because this is what backs up to it.
Oh, okay.
This goes like this.
So the destruction here wouldn't have hurt that.
Correct.
Okay.
And you see there's nothing that's wiped on this part. So
Right.
these two haven't been rubbing together.
I think you have just gotten me to the point where if I see
White
tiny
marks,
little
you're
white
like, "What's wrong?"
scratches, yeah, like something's in there that's not supposed to be there.
So this is your outer clutch basket. This is your drive gear. This gear matches to the gear on the crankshaft, and that's what turns the outer basket. There are these little springs in here.
Right.
That's so when you dump the clutch, that center piece has that little tiny bit of spring action to absorb some of that. It's almost like having a cush drive for your rear wheel.
Okay.
Except now there's one here in between the crank and the transmission.
I'm pretending like I know what a cush drive is.
When
but-
you take the rear wheel apart and you take the sprocket carrier off, those little rubber bushings
Oh, okay.
is your cush
Gotcha.
drive. This is a very similar way, except they do it with springs instead of rubber. Rubber really wouldn't survive inside the engine.
No.
So this is how they do that. Cool clutch basket. Set this aside.
We don't care about any of these, right? Like, these are dead to us.
They are dead to us. We're going to replace every bit of this clutch assembly as well.
So with a clutch, is it the type of thing where we can get a better clutch, or is it just get an OEM one, call it a day?
In my world, there isn't anything better than a factory OE clutch.
Is that because everything is built with that OE clutch in mind type thing, or
So they are all copies of the OE,
right?
right? Because they have to fit into this machine. What they do change are the materials.
Okay.
You may be able to get an aftermarket clutch that has more grab,
Okay.
but it's not going to have as much longevity.
Okay.
There are certain OE parts that, in my opinion,
just
need
get
to be
OE.
used. Oil filters, gaskets, seals, stuff
And
like
clutches.
that. Clutch assemblies. A lot of times brake pads, especially on Honda, because if you do aftermarket brake pads, they just don't fit quite as good as the factory ones do. So there are certain things for certain manufacturers that I found over the years that it's just much easier to use OE stuff than trying to do aftermarket.
Okay. Is this the entire clutch then?
This is the entire clutch assembly. We have one more part,
okay.
two more parts in here.
Okay.
We have the starter clutch that we can take off.
Okay.
We also have the starter we can remove.
Okay.
And then there is this starter driven gear that we can remove.
So is this thing 2 bolts out and then pop
Slide
it
it
out?
sideways and then it'll release itself. You want to work on that?
Yeah, I can remove the starter.
This case is pretty much empty now. All that we see left in here, this is all of the transmission shift detent stuff on this side. So the end of the shift drum and the end of the shift rod that rocks
Okay.
everything, that all comes through on this side. Guess we should probably take that off too. The shift detent and all that stuff.
Okay.
Okay. And then
That was holding the starter clutch, is that what you said? I only know it as the thing that can only rotate in one direction.
yes.
Oh, this is typically the thing that's behind this
The back
big
of the
old boy, and
flywheel.
it's fucking massive.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. Yep. So here's
okay.
how so if you're trying to take these apart, they kind of just don't pull apart real nice. But if you get them in the direction where they spin,
Right.
and you spin it and pull it at the same time, they just slide right apart. Do you want to know how this thing works?
I think they want to know how this.
Do you
thing
guys
works.
want to know how this thing works? Do you guys over there? Do you guys want to know how this thing works? Okay. So this smooth part on this gear rides against this ring on the outside, and if you could see these little hoops of metal in here, see them in there? Mm-hmm. They're holding a bearing, if you will, almost like a roller bearing,
Okay.
inside of this outer cage, but they're not perfectly round.
Okay.
They're almost like teardrop shaped, or they'll have one side that is bigger than the other. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. So
One
not a
side
point,
thin,
but
not
like,
to a point, but one side
Gotcha.
thin, one side fat.
Right.
When you spin it in one direction, it just glides over the smooth part of it.
Right.
When you spin it in the other direction, it grabs those bearings and it rotates them until they lock.
Oh,
Make sense?
that's pretty fancy.
I would take these out to show you, but this starter clutch is in good shape.
So we'd
And
actually
let me tell you the nightmare of reassembling each one of these things in the right order. They have to be in not this way, but this way.
Please be very
Not
careful.
this way, but this way,
Don't
right?
mess up the one thing we've taken off that we can
And
actually
you have to put
back
them all
on.
in the right direction. So if they all fall out and scatter,
Oh,
buy a new
good.
one.
Ridiculous
Don't take
teamwork.
apart your starter clutches if you can at all help it. You know, doesn't help anybody unless you just want to see how it works.
Take apart
And
a
you're
broken
gonna
one though.
and you're gonna replace it anyway.
Right.
Okay, so this side of the engine case is empty.
Sounds like we have end of the day. That's what it sounds like. Oh my gosh.
It blows my mind how much really bad shit goes on here.
So both the
But then again, we are
CBR1000
buying motorcycles that have been left to die.
Yeah, but like the 300 still ran when half the engine
This
was
thing still ran and
disintegrating.
ride.
That's my point. That's my point. Is these bikes are running when things are fucking blown up. How? How with the level of tolerances that motorcycles have and engines have, like if it's this and not this, it's not. I don't.
Well, that's why this
Depends
thing.
on how long it's been running.
That's why that clutch didn't completely disintegrate, because it was
Because of-
sandwiched in between all this tight clearance stuff.
Right.
And I still can't tell you how the 300's still running. I have no idea
Yeah, I
how
don't
that
know.
thing was still running. I wouldn't even have thought that that was possible.
Right, the amount of sheer amount of
After
metal that came
seeing
out of
what
that.
came out of that thing, I would not have believed someone if they told me it ran before they took it apart.
If you guys haven't watched the CBR 300 series, I know most people are fans of the 1000 and not as many people care about the 300, but if you want to see some crazy shit come out of an engine,
Absolute destruction.
well, I'll put a link for the 300 engine episode down below because y'all, it's nuts. Okay, so for this episode, clutch is blown up. Now we know that. What are we looking like at the next episode, and why should I be worried as the showrunner of this fucking show?
You should still be worried because we have not found the cause of our engine rattle.
So you don't think any of this has caused it?
Like I said earlier, when we had this thing together and we were running it,
Right.
all the sounds I heard came from that side of the engine that we haven't touched yet.
Oh my god.
So could that have caused the rattle and it echoed through the engine cases to the other side?
Yep.
It is supremely possible. But that being said, if there's any place in the engine where the sound is going to echo, it's going to be on the side that has the cam chain on it.
Okay.
This is the cam chain side. So if we're going to hear any rattling that would have come from someplace else in the engine and was echoing around,
Right.
we would have heard it on this side, not on that side.
Oh my good god.
So the rattle is actually coming from something on that side of the machine somewhere.
All right, guys. Like I said in the beginning of this video, we have a good opportunity to really dive into this engine stuff. So
Clutch cracks me up, dude.
I know, just sitting there spinning. Thank you guys for getting to the end of the video. For one, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and tune in next time when we open up the other side of the engine and find out what's making the sound. If you guys want videos a week early, we post them early, a week ahead of time over on our Patreon page. So you guys can win the motorcycle, get early content, and you get behind the scenes like photos and stuff like that we post. You can also watch
There's other
these.
content.
There's tons of other content on there. We do a lot of work to make Patreon a pretty cool spot. So if you guys want to help support the channel, support the build, win the motorcycles, and get early stuff, top link down below, Wrecked Bike Rebuild Garage. Go ahead and sign up. Help us build the coolest bikes we possibly can. I'm Chaseontwowheels. This is Brian, and we will find out next time even more problems with the wrecked motorcycle. Oh my god.
Yes, yes, we will.
Man, outro crew, man, so many things to ask you guys on this episode. Now that you know that the clutch was blown up with a capital B, what do you guys think is wrong on the other side? I'm super anxious and terrified to find out. Brian, you want to put a guess in, or do you?
It's not the transmission.
Okay. Brian has done the opposite and said what it is not. Oh, okay.
Do you want to
Outro
know
crew,
you want to know what I think it is?
find out next time. Outro crew, let us know what you think it's not. You can't say transmission. Thank you guys for getting to the end of the video. We love you long time. We'll see you on the next one.
It's
What do you
not
think
an
it-
ice cream sandwich.
It's not an ice cream sandwich. You're right.